Okay, welcome back. Our next presentation is a real treat. Coming back to present for us on the topic of opportunities in the financial services industry is Dr. Robert Levin. Bob is a senior vice president and a partner in Ascend Wealth Management, part of UBS, and he's based in Beverly Hills, California. He and his partners direct a multi-billion-dollar wealth management practice. Dr. Levin's clients are mostly physicians, healthcare executives, and their companies. His team provides comprehensive wealth management, including investments, retirement, and complex estate and tax planning, insurance advice, and lending. They also advise their clients about exit strategies and liquidity events for their companies and their shareholders. Dr. Levin practiced pediatrics for 12 years prior to his transition in 2001. His prior financial services experience includes serving as a healthcare financial analyst at JP Morgan Chase on Wall Street. And Dr. Levin will explain he was on the sell side and he covered pharmaceutical equities, which is a good fit for a doctor, I'd say. And Dr. Levin also had a brief stint as a medical consultant to a venture capital fund. Dr. Levin earned both his BS and his MD from the University of Michigan, go Wolverines, and later trained in pediatrics at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. So welcome back, Dr. Levin, and I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for coming again.
My pleasure. I think I'll introduce one question that I've been asked about 5,000 times over the last 25 years, because I know it's going to be asked me later on, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching this will have the same question, and that is, why did I get out of medicine? Why did I leave medicine? So the answer I always answer is, first of all, I don't feel like I left medicine. I still keep up my license to help people in charity situations, not for money, of course, in the community and airplanes and other places. So I like to say I retired from clinical practice. And number two, the main reason I changed or I switched basically is because it's in one word and it's bored, B-O-R-E-D. And a lot of doctors are embarrassed or scared or ashamed to say that, but I'm not, although maybe I was originally. And that I was, I had a business background in high school and I loved medical school and residency. And I was warned I'd get bored in practice, but I didn't listen to my mentors who later became clients. And that is number one reason I decided to change many, many years ago. And that led to my journey where I am to today. And I'm happy to take questions later on if you have about that. But that's probably the most common question I get. And so I want to just preface it with that. So I began my foray into the financial services industry. I wanted to combine I had a business in high school and always was good with numbers, with something still related to the medical healthcare field, and was looking for something that would keep me intellectually stimulated. I was living in New York at the time, and so some friends of mine suggested that you might do some, venture capital consulting, which I did for a brief period. This is back in the heyday of the late 90s and 2000s. And then I was actively looking for a job on Wall Street, and then finally got my break, where I became a associate equity healthcare analyst in the pharmaceutical division at JP Morgan Chase in New York City. It was actually got the job in the summer of or the spring of 2001, and we were at 60 Wall Street. We moved just a month before, in August, before 9/11. We moved to Midtown. Thankfully, we did, and I was trapped in the city that night, so it was quite an experience to start off my Wall Street career, just a month before or a few months before 9/11. Anyway, with that as a background, I just want to get into, I guess, what I was asked to talk about today is, and that is for physicians, or opportunities for physicians in the financial services industry and how you can get them. So, and I'm not great with technology, so I'm going to try to go slowly here. So my first real job in the business world was an equity research healthcare analyst. And so what do? So there are two sides, what's called the sell side and the buy side. And what you're doing as an analyst is you're analyzing private and public healthcare companies, and you're putting a price tag on them. So, for example, Pfizer. Pfizer is a drug company, and they make vaccines, and they make, for COVID, and they make other medications and cholesterol medications and a bunch of other medications, and they sell as a stock that you can buy yourself, in the stock market. So, what is the value of Pfizer? So ultimately, we're looking at a price tag on what Pfizer we think is worth, and then we compare it to the actual price it's selling for on the market. Do we advise people or clients or institutions? Do we think it's overpriced or underpriced or at fair value? That's ultimately what we're doing. And what we're doing as a drug analyst, in my case, is we're analyzing the products that Pfizer in this case has, their services, their financial statements, their likely profitability going forward, and their competitive position versus their competitors, because there's a lot of competition. So what are you doing more specifically? Again, what we're trying to do is justify the price tag on the company, and then we sell that information to different stakeholders, which will be institutions primarily. And IBs means investment banks, and then the sales force who goes ahead and takes that information that we're writing up these reports to those stakeholders. And if we do a good job, then those stakeholders will pay a commission, or the investment banks will get the deal. That's what you're doing on the sell side, and there's many parts to it. But as a doctor starting in, that's what your job is going to be, and I'll give you a little more detail in a minute. On the buy side, then an analyst is deciding if a company, again, is over or undervalued, and then will execute trades that will leverage that opinion. So if you're a fund manager, you own a mutual fund or an index fund, and you're deciding whether I want to buy this company or sell this company, then you're going to take the information that your analysis has led you to about this company in relation to its peers, in relation to the sector that it's in, and go ahead and either buy more shares or sell the shares depending on the particular characteristics of the portfolio that you're involved with. Now, so what do doctors do specifically when they're starting out? Now, again, there are many subdivisions within healthcare. There's the pharmaceutical division, which I was in. There's also specialty pharmaceuticals. There's medical devices. There's healthcare services. There's information. There's technology with regards to healthcare. There's different subsectors within, even within healthcare on the equity analyst side. So I was in the pharmaceutical side. So what I was doing was analyzing prescription trends of certain drugs. We thought they were going to do well, especially if a new drug came to the market. We would call doctors, get their opinions, analyze clinical trials, attend conferences. I even went to the FDA conferences, I think it was in Rockville, Maryland, to get the data. And what we're trying to do is compare current situations for companies using historical information so that you can predict how the current situation will play out, not just with their drug or their medical device, whatever they have, but overall how that's going to affect the company's revenues, their profitability, and again, their market position versus other drug companies that are being traded. So why is a doctor qualified? I mean, the biggest mistake doctors make is thinking that they don't have the skills or qualifications to transition into a different career in the financial services industry or financial industry period, and that's just a myth. You have a lot of qualifications that you don't realize you have. You've got domain knowledge, meaning you understand, hopefully, the science, what's behind a drug or the data behind a medical device, so you can at least make an educated prediction as to what might happen with the clinical trial. And you can apply your own clinical experience in a particular field, if you had it, to predict what would happen to that drug, again, in my case, in the marketplace. And you have the ability to doctor talk, physicians speak with other physicians and get their insights into drugs or trials. The other thing that you have going for you is that you can understand a new company. You're very good at synthesizing a tremendous amount of information of medical nature and forming an opinion. Doctors generally have good quantitative and problem-solving skills. Most, but not all doctors have good relationship skills. And you do have the ability to influence people. Your people are used to taking your opinion seriously. Those two little initials of MD after your name do still carry some weight. So that's why you actually have a leg up on the competition in a lot of ways. Now, how do you get the job? The most important thing is you've got to talk to 1 million people, and I'm exaggerating 1 million, but you've got to make your name known. You've got to meet people. You've got to talk to other doctors. You've got to talk to other people who have made the transition into this industry, which is what I did. I talked to a guy who was an MD, PhD. He was a dermatologist, and he was working at a company in a similar type of situation to give me advice what to do. And I, in turn, after I left this particular field, I in turn advised other doctors how to get into the field. But you have to meet those people, and they do exist, and get their contacts and speak with those contacts. You should know how to interview well. You want to get your face in front of someone who's going to be a decision maker that might want to hire you. And you have to show ultimately how your skills and your personality is going to help the senior analyst in their job, and how you are a leg up or different than your colleagues as to why you would be a better fit for this company to get the position that they're offering. So what you need to do is make sure your resume is geared more toward a business setting. Here's another key tip. as a doctor, you're used to getting credentials after your name, MD, PhD. It's always about getting another credential and so on and so forth. In business, those credentials don't really matter so much. Okay. What matters more ultimately in business is to increase profits or to decrease expenses ultimately. And if you can help with that, then you're going to be valuable. So you want to, on your resume, show things that might indicate where you have some kind of business background. If you have some kind of business background, if you don't, that's okay also. But the structure of the resume is going to be a little bit different than if you were just applying for a residency or for a fellowship. I get the question all the time, should you start a CFA program, which is a very difficult analytical certificate you can get, which is very valuable if you can get it, but it's extremely difficult test to pass. There's 3 parts to it, part 1, 2, and 3. But if you want to start that, that's a good idea to start it. Shows you're serious. Also an MBA program. I'll share my own experience. I started an MBA program at Johns Hopkins. I only finished the first year, and then I got my job, and I never finished the MBA because I didn't really need it. The goal of the MBA is to help you get the job, and so I got the job. Then I didn't feel like I needed the MBA, and I didn't wind up needing it or missing it. You can also get involved in clinical trials and private practice if you're able to do that. Again, that shows that you're serious about trying to get this position. So how can you be successful? Let's say you got the job. This is a good screen that, again, shows you the basic things you got to do. Remember, you're starting over again. Okay, you're an intern again. You need to learn a lot. There's a big learning curve, and just accept that you don't know anything yet. Even when I started out, I didn't really know how to use Excel properly, but I had to learn it. And by the way, once they hire you, they paid someone to teach me how to do Excel at that point. You have to know how to write basic composition, sentences, paragraphs. Always be ethical, of course. Make sure you have good relationships with the people around you, and do the work. Produce the work that they need. Show you have endurance, and again, form an opinion and back it up, and try to convert other people to your viewpoint. That's how you can be successful in this job. Of course, you want to know what you get paid with this. Now, again, when I was starting out, and I did check these figures a couple of years ago, a doctor should still be able to get between $150,000 to $200,000 as a base as an associate equity analyst, and most likely get a bonus between $500,000 and $50,000 and $100,000, typically paid out at the end of the year, and what goes with good performance. That's just your starting point. You want to move up to what's called a senior equity analyst. When your pay goes higher, you have more responsibilities. Your pay can go up to $300,000 to $500,000 at that point. And then the ultimate is you want to become what's called a managing director, where you're the one who is the person who is responsible and overseeing the reports that are being produced. And there, the average person who's the managing director will typically earn between $500,000 to $800,000 a year. A good managing director, senior analyst, can earn $1 million plus. And if they're really good, and if they're in the right sector like biotech, they can make $2 to $4 million. And then I was learning recently that you may even get a contract, which was not common in my time, where you have some more job security. In general, the income upside, you can make more money, is higher on the buy side, but so is the risk, because if the fund that you're recommending buys and sells for doesn't do well, then you could be out of a job. But on the sell side, usually your job security is a little bit greater, but you may not make quite as much money, but still very good pay. That is it about healthcare equity research analysts. Would you like me to continue talking about the financial services industry, or any questions at this point, or I should go further now?
I think we'll hold the questions to the end, Doctor.
Okay, fine.
Go right ahead.
I'll go further now. So then I'll share with you a personal story. So this is during the financial crisis, way back in the tech bubble in 2000. And then in 2003, there was a recession on Wall Street. The market dropped by a tremendous amount. And when that happens on Wall Street, they cut, it's called head cutting. They get rid of people, not because of performance issues, but because they simply aren't making the revenues to justify, having so many analysts on their team. So I was out of a job. I was looking for different things to do, wanted to get back into the industry. But it was very difficult. There literally was 1,000 applications for one position, and on Wall Street wasn't hiring. Meanwhile, I had some investment banks and financial service firms that were calling me saying, "Look, we could use a guy like you. Why don't you think about the financial services industry," which is a different aspect of business. But I did look at it, and I had some offers on the East Coast and on the West Coast. To make a long story short, I took the offer on the West Coast back in LA, where I'd done my residency, and started off my career at actually Merrill Lynch in Beverly Hills. Was there for 12 and a half years. They actually became Bank of America it got bought by Bank of America during the next financial crisis, which was in 2008, and stayed with them. And then in 2012, by that time I had grown and become successful, thank God, and had a larger team, and then moved my team to UBS in Beverly Hills nearly 9 years ago, where I've been since. And now I'm one of four partners, and we manage a few $1 billion, and I think we're doing quite well. But in any event, so what's the financial services industry? Now, this is different than what I was just talking about, the equity research analyst position. This is totally different. The equity research analyst position is really dealing with institutions, okay? For the most part, and companies on a corporate level. Here you're dealing with families, individuals, families, and their businesses, much more retail in that way, in that manner. And what you're doing with the best wealth management advisors, is what we call ourselves, are doing, is we're really advising individuals, their families, and helping them manage not just their investments and retirement, but everything else financially you can think about. I mean, estate plans, lending, insurance, really any financial matter of importance, we become part of their family almost. And typically, when they have a major financial decision to make, whatever it is, anything that involves numbers, they'll talk with their spouse or significant other, and then we're the next call. And you have to look at it like that. That every family is a private company with financial goals, run by the head of the company, my CEO, and the wealth management advisors. They function as kind of the chief financial officer and help the company achieve those goals. And what we're really ultimately doing is serving as a financial concierge to our clients. This is what we're ultimately doing. And it's very gratifying when they thank you for giving them advice. We don't tell them what to do. We tell them the pros and cons of different decisions, and they go with that. And we're saving them a lot of time and a lot of worry, and they really appreciate that. So again, why are doctors qualified to be into the financial services industry? Number one, they got a stronger work ethic than most people. We're very performance driven in general. People inherently respect and trust physicians. It's already gives you a leg up, the fact that you're a doctor. There aren't that many doctors in the financial services industry. Again, usually you have good relationship skills and you can influence people. You can easily speak with other professionals, and hopefully and typically we have decent problem solving skills. So again, how do you get the job? Here, unlike the equity research analyst, to get the job is relatively easy. To succeed is very difficult. Again, you have to know how to interview well. You have to show how your skills and personality will attract new, affluent clients to your company that you're working at. And ultimately, if you want to be really successful, you have to have the ability to get people. We'll talk more about this, to trust you and to want you to help manage their money and become their wealth management advisor for them and their family. That's a skill that you have or can develop, or you'll learn that you don't have it. So again, to get the job, make sure your resume, it looks, again, more of a business-oriented resume versus trying to get a residency or a fellowship in clinical medicine. And again, network, talk to as many different people as you can. Again, there are physicians also in this business, and ask how they transition and what they recommend. Now, there are different tracks to get into this industry. The largest track with the most number of advisors is what's called the wirehouse, because they used to send messages by wire to make trades in the stock market. For example, UBS, where I'm at, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. Another track to get into this industry is called RIA, which stands for Registered Investment Advisory. They're more independent firms, usually much smaller. There's another track you can get in through insurance companies or through a discount brokerage house. Each of these tracks has pros and cons associated with them. Now is not the time to go into it. Typically, the only ones that are going to have training programs will be the wirehouses or the insurance companies. If you go into the insurance route, you're a little more limited, because the insurance, primarily, they're going to get compensated for selling insurance products. Whereas in the wirehouse industry, the trend has been that you can charge a percentage as a management cost of the amount of money that you're managing for somebody. So you develop annuitized income streams, and not being relying on having to make a transaction in order to generate revenue. To be a financial advisor, you have to have securities licenses. It's called the SIE and a Series 66 exam. You can get those even if you're not working at a company yet. And the Series 7 exam, which is the national exam, can only be taken if you're sponsored by a firm, meaning they hire you and they say, okay, we want you to be on our company, and we'll sponsor you to be able to take the Series 7 exam, which is a difficult exam, but if you're a doctor, you should be able to pass that without too much difficulty. Okay. I was just going to share you a humorous story. As doctors, we're used to being competitive, want to get the best score. But when I passed my Series 7 exam, I think I got 88% back in the day. And they all looked at me like, Bob, you studied way too hard for that. All you're supposed to do is to pass, get a 70, 72%, which is a passing score. And that means you didn't waste your time. Because in business, they don't want you to waste your time. They don't want to study more than absolutely necessary. I just thought it was very funny how they approached it from a different perspective. Okay. So again, there's different tracks into the industry. Again, some firms have a training program. Usually it could be 1.5 to 3 years. My particular company where I'm at now doesn't do that, but there's some indirect paths that you can indirectly get into the financial advisor position. One is called the client service associate. You can read it on the screen here. Another one's called the wealth planning associate. A third one's called a wealth strategy associate. These are positions that is your entry point into, at least at our company and a lot of other financial services firms, if you're not right away going to become a financial advisor. And it's probably a good idea to do this if you can, to get your foot in the door. To start off solo as a financial advisor, unless you have a lot of wealthy contacts that are pretty sure you're going to be able to get them as clients right away, you might be sorely disappointed. And this is probably a safer bet to at least get started in the industry and learn more what it's about before you become a financial advisor, when then really you are kind of on your own in a lot of ways to bring in new clients. So as he said at the bottom of the screen here, the goal is to become a financial advisor, because then you really are the boss, sort of. You still have to deal with management and compliance and client expectations, but you do have an unlimited income potential at that point. Again, how to be successful. The key is you have to get prospects, someone you think has assets and can use a financial advisor or a wealth management team to trust you. It's not about selling products, okay? It's about getting them to trust you to become their trusted financial advisor. You always want to be ethical, make sure you're giving good advice, do what's right for your clients, always have integrity, do what you say you're going to do, always set aside time to make sure that you're meeting new people and trying to grow your business. And in this business, unless you're on your own as an independent group, you're growing your own private practice, basically using the company you're at, using their resources. It's kind of a symbiotic relationship. So again, if once you get in, to be successful, you got to work long and hard at the beginning, like anything else. Put in at least 50 to 60 hours a week at the beginning. You have to go through the process of finding people that have assets, typically at least $1 million in assets or more, doesn't have to be, that are looking for someone to be their wealth management advisor. You'd be surprised when people want that. People are looking for other individuals that they trust that will help them to make good decisions, or make sure they don't make bad decisions, or they just don't have the time, interest, or confidence to do these things on their own, and they want to find a team that will work with them to get things done. It's about goal setting for the clients and who helping them accomplish their financial goals. Again, you got to talk to a lot of people. You probably have to talk to 20 or 30 suspects to get to one client. And you got to be very persistent. If you're not persistent, you're not going to be successful in this business. And as I mentioned at the bottom there, you're calling them several times, having a couple meetings to get them to become a client. What can you make in doing this? So again, once you're licensed, you get all these licenses, and if you can become an FA, a financial advisor, that's the holy grail. That's where your income potential is unlimited. But before that, it might be very challenging to get in as a financial advisor off the ground. So you have to go these other routes. My particular firm is these other methods I mentioned, is CSA, WPA, or WSA, where their compensation is between 75 and maybe 200 the first few years. But then your goal is to become a financial advisor, where your compensation at that point, again, maybe starts at 100 grand, and then plus benefits. And then again, then it really is up to you. If you can bring in new clients, bring in assets, invest them, charge a management cost, and anything else financially you're doing for them, you'll get paid on that. And then you get a percentage of the production or its revenue that client is paying. So, and that percentage increases as you do better. Someone who brings in $1 million of revenue to the company will earn at least $400,000 net to you, and get other perks. And at $2 million, you get $800,000, and it goes up from there. Okay, that is the pay. If you do well, again, the sky's the limit. I mean, I personally know people are making multi-million dollars a year, but that's the exception, not the rule. But again, 80 or 90% of these advisors fail in the first 2 years because getting new clients is a very difficult skill. It can be learned, but you have to have confidence and you've got to be very, very persistent. Okay. If you're successful, then your title changes to senior financial advisor, then vice president, senior vice president, managing director. But again, titles in business don't matter so much as much as you're either able to bring in revenue or cut down on expenses. And then this is actually modern healthcare. For this procedure, I've assembled a team that includes a microsurgery specialist, a neurologist, 2 anesthesiologists, and 2 surgical nurses. Of course, we're all here just to fill out these insurance forms. I think it's actually pretty accurate. That's all I have to say. And if you have any questions, please let me go ahead. Should I get rid of this screen here?
I'm as technologically challenged as you, Doctor. That was absolutely fantastic. A few questions.
Should I get rid of this screen here?
Your choice, Doc. I'd like to see you bigger. Let's see you bigger.
All right, there I am.
Okay. All right. Some easy ones. Did you keep your boards?
I couldn't hear you.
Did you keep your board certification?
Good question. I did initially, but after I was really solid in this field, and I never had any thought of going back to clinical practice. So for my last renewal, I did not renew my Board of Pediatrics certification. I'm still licensed. I keep up my medical license, and I have my DEA, but I did not get board certification again.
Now, you just really got my curiosity going. What was your business in high school?
I had a lawn maintenance business. Believe it, for my suburban neighborhood. Used to cut all the neighbors' lawns and shrubbery and kept it good. And I paid for college that way. It was back in the day when I got paid cash and college was not so expensive.
God bless. Fantastic. Just curious, your financial services, I mean, this is your thing. What publications, newspapers, journals do you read to keep up?
It's a good question. All sorts of information. So I don't even know where to start. I mean, the things that I track every day, put it this way, the things I track every single day is I look at where interest rates are, short-term interest rates, a 10-year U.S. Treasury note, a 30-year Treasury note. I look at what inflation is doing. I look at what unemployment's doing. I look at what the stock market is doing in terms of, what's its valuation, in terms of the S&P, in terms of the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, less so. And I'm looking at, what bond prices are, which are usually influenced by, by interest rates, obviously. But as far as publications, all kinds of things, what could be from Barron's to the Wall Street Journal to just basic news you get. I mean, when the Federal Reserve Chairman makes a decision on interest rates, it's on all the news stations. I don't care where you're getting it. And it's not so much in this industry. Also, maybe a question maybe was behind this. When you're in the financial services industry, with rare exceptions, you're not being paid to get the right stock or the right specific investment. You're being paid because you're a financial advisor and you want to help your clients achieve their financial goals, okay? Which for most people is be able to retire early or to be able to make work optional, pay for their kids' college or kids or grandkids' college expenses, help them start a business, take a trip around the world, start another career. That's what you're being paid to do. And to be their advisor or taking out a mortgage on another piece of property or real estate investment. And so I'm looking at all these different sources of information, but as I always tell people, the information you're going to get, half those opinions will be right and half will be wrong. So it's a multiplicity of sources. There isn't one particular source. My own company has information also. Again, they're as good as anybody else. It doesn't mean they're right all the time. They're not. And all the other companies also, when other companies have, when you're making opinions about the future, by definition, you're not going to be right most of the time. So that's what we're looking at.
Any professional societies or conferences that you recommend to physicians in particular that want to get into this business attend to kind of listen and learn?
That's a good question. Any conferences they could go to learn about this business?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know how you get to learn about it unless you're in it. It's kind of a catch-22.
There's not a professional society of medically oriented financial people that you know of?
Nah, not that I'm aware of, no.
You can start one. There you go.
I don't know about that.
How do you think it's possible, feasible for a doctor who doesn't want to go all in to start on some of these roles on like a half-time basis to learn the ropes and kind of keep his, or is it you got to go all in if you're going to do this stuff?
Yeah, no, nobody's going to hire you to be part-time.
Okay, very good. And then you mentioned at one point, I think that you were at Merrill Lynch, and then you moved your team over to UBS where you are now in Ascend. How difficult is it to move your book of business to a different kind of mothership if somebody wanted to do that?
That's an excellent question. By the way, now that you brought that subject up, I mean, again, this is a poor comparison, but in this industry, it's almost, in a sense, it's almost like the sports world. If you're good at what you do, then other teams are going to try to attract you and pay you more money to leave that team and to go to another team. All right, and so you can become like an agent or free agent, and other companies will be calling you to try to move to another company. Um, and there's a lot of movement of the top advisors. They'll stay at one firm for a long time, then move to another. Um, because what they want ultimately is that advisor's clients, because typically the advisor's clients, if they're doing a good job for them, the vast majority of those clients will move with the advisor and the team to the new company. And the company that's offering the advisor to move to them knows that and wants that. And so they will pay them and make it lucrative for them to do that. As far from the financial advisor's perspective, it is a how would I translate? It's a stressful. It's a definitely stressful period of time. It was stressful for me when I did that, and I was confident that my clients would move with me. Not all of them did, but I was confident that the vast majority would, which they did. And I knew it was going to be stressful going in, but again, I was well prepared for it in the sense that I knew other people had done it. I talked with them, had legal representation, other representation, people holding my hand, so to speak, when making the transition. But it's a very stressful time, and I don't recommend doing it. Um, if you have to, you have to, or it depends on your own circumstances. You can do that, and I actually know people who've actually done it almost as a career choice, like every 7 or 8 or 9 years to move to a different firm. I wouldn't recommend that, but I know people have done that.
All right, now let's talk about retirement. You talk about retirement planning. So in most jobs, a doctor, you work the academic medical center, whatever, you practice for 40 years, you say you're going to retire, they give you a plaque and they say, good, have a good time, go play some golf. Um, for somebody in your position, is there a process to maybe cash out with those contacts and clients when you do choose it? Maybe you could explain that a little bit, Dr. Levin.
Excellent question. You got really good questions. And that is that part of I take care of a lot of physicians and we advise them around the country. That's what our niche is basically. And I can't tell you how many doctors who, again, like you just said, they've been in practice 20, 30, 40 years. And unless they've made arrangements in advance, they may get nothing when they want to retire. If they want to sell their practice, there's no buyers out there. Okay. Again, it's a much more detailed conversation. If they're part of a large medical group or they have a certain specialty, then they can. I'll show you a few examples. I have clients that are ophthalmologists. They banded together, a whole bunch of them. They sold to a private equity firm and they got paid that way. I know other doctors who sold their practice to a hospital. They got paid that way. I also know many physicians, though, that they're in an area where nobody's going to come and buy them because it's not economically attractive for new doctors to move in, take over their practice. A lot of cultural, economic reasons behind that also. And so it's very sad sometimes when doctors work their practice for 30 or 40 years and there's nothing to show for it. It is not like that in the financial services industry, which is good. And then again, if you're one of those advisors that's successful, and remember, it's very difficult at the beginning, but if you do well, then you can do very well. Then absolutely there is a succession program in place that if a doctor, a financial service financial advisor like myself, wealth management advisor, is getting, let's say they're going closer to the end of the career, the company that you're at will offer you a transition package to help transition your clients to other advisors that you've teamed up with, and the clients get used to that and they're working with these other advisors. You have one big team, and we have a 15-person team, for example. So the clients are get comfortable, understand there are many other people in the team. It's not just one person. And so yes, the company will have financial considerations for you to as you go into retirement, so that your clients will want to stay with the existing company that they're at. Conversely, once headhunters get word of this, they know who the good advisors are and the teams are, and they're constantly calling you and saying, "Hey, why don't you come to our company if you're thinking of retiring? We'll pay you this and this and this and this to bring your clients over to us and retire with us." So again, there's a lot of competition. That's why I go back to the sports analogy. If you're doing well, then people will know about it, and you'll be getting phone calls.
It's good to get paid on merit, which is very strange. So, let's talk about, and you can take the fifth on this if you want. You don't want to talk about. Let's talk about family. Obviously, what you did, you had to sacrifice some income and some security to do what you have to do. How important is the support of your spouse and your family in this process? And any advice on and getting a spouse's buy-in and things like that, Doctor?
Oh, I mean, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer. Absolutely, you want to make sure your spouse is with you on this. It is very challenging moving from clinical practice, or even not clinical practice, from the healthcare medical clinical world, so to speak, where there's a whole different set of goals and values and what you're doing, to the business world, which ultimately again is based on increasing profitability or decreasing expenses, increasing revenues or decreasing expenses, basically increasing profitability. And absolutely, if your spouse isn't on board with you, it's going to be very hard for you, because it is painful. Okay, when you're making a change, beginnings are difficult. Okay, and it was not easy for me at the beginning also. And I don't want to put a time limit on it, but it probably took a couple years before I was really, I had to put all my energy and effort into it. Within a couple, 2, 3 years, and I started, the income was there, and things were progressing, and I knew this was going to work. Thankfully, I have a wonderful spouse. Next March will be 30 years. We're married already. Very supportive from the beginning, but absolutely, that's important to have, your spouse in your corner with you.
And the last question is, I already know the answer to this one. Any regrets, Doctor?
No.
Thank you so much, Dr. Levin. Thank you
Okay.
for coming back.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right.